Hey guys, it's RobJ here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look around my setup coming into nuptial flight. Now this is pretty bare bones. A lot of my setup has been removed, and this is probably about the smallest it's been. But it will be growing as we come into the nuptial flights. So let's get on to the video. So first of all, we're going to start off with one of my favourite ants, and officially my smallest ants as well. Now these guys are pretty the same as the last time you saw them, to be honest. They've obviously a lot of died from old age, they're replenishing at slightly more than the death rate, and as you can see here there is a nice healthy queen laying in there with so much eggs, so it's really going well for this colony. I did do a little fiddling around, you know, I give them like a junction between the outworlds. I hooked up the second port so it's like a 2 entrance nest, because it was too much of like a zigzag for the ants in the very first chamber. But as I mentioned in previous videos, this colony likes to live in the outworlds, the tubes and the nest. If they all lived in the nest would be full, but they don't, so it's partially empty and has quite a few trash piles. I know it's not so pretty, but this is a reality of ant keeping, and instead of tidying it all up before I did the video, I thought you should see what to expect instead of seeing my videos, looking at your own colony and thinking, why is mine so dirty? This is clean ant keeping, but inside nests do get a bit manky. Now, as you can see, some of these chambers contain literally hundreds of ants. There's so much packed in here, and the queen is in and amongst these. I would guess she was in the tube or in one of these main masses. And this is all heated with a heat cable underneath, and this colony is really quite doing well. So let's move down to my newest colony. This is probably what you guys are most familiar with as far as ants from me. So, this is my DIACAMMA RUGOSUM, and they're doing really well, okay? Now I know I bring you separate update videos, and I normally do, and I nearly did, but I thought it was about time we did a setup update. But we do have some news on this colony. Last time I joined 2 colonies, a Gamma Gate less colony with a new colony that would supposedly have a Gamma Gate. But it looked like after about 3 or 4 deaths of old age that the colony was just going to dwindle out anyway, so it was nearly a sad story. But very recently, in and amongst the darkness of the quite hard to see into nest, well, to check for eggs anyway, I spotted something being carried around. Now I'm going to show you a clip, and I'm pretty sure it's a larvae. So, and that means there is a Gamma Gate here, and they are laying. Now, it is actually on show in the far chamber now, but I'll give you a zoomed in version in a sec. But if you can see, you'd have to really have some good eyes. There is a worker leaning above the rest, holding a nice, healthy looking egg. And here's the zoom in, and if you see him, see it? Pretty sure that that's too round to be a mealworm. So that's good news. We'll just have to see how that colony gets on. They still might die out, or they might succeed. I'll be bringing you further updates on them soon. Right, moving on to my CAMPONOTUS Herculinus colony. Now these guys have done fantastic. The last time I showed you these guys, their nest was absolutely rammed with eggs in different chambers. Well, now the chambers are empty because they've all hatched. After a long time, a lot of the workers that were like essentially babysitting back then have become old enough to leave the nest. So the outworld is about as most populated it's ever been. There's more ants out of the nest than in the nest. It's not because there's been any die-offs, there's been 1 or 2 die-offs. So it's just, this is where we are. And we have 2 or 3 majors, or essentially soldiers. I'm not really sure how you want to refer to them as. In the colony, as you can see, there's quite a big chap in the centre there, or girl, and they're really doing well. And the queen is still laying a lovely healthy batch of fresh eggs right there for you, and you can see another major there, and the queen herself, and everything's really going well for them. Now there's so many ants old enough to leave the nest because the numbers are just right. They are getting a lot of food, a lot more than the measly bit the 1 or 2 ants used to bring back. The outworld is a flurry of about 10 to 15 ants most of the time, and that's good because the bigger the ant colony gets, the more workers there are, and I can give them more food and less of it goes to waste. So it's really good. So we're going to move down to my, let's say, more boring colony. I'm not really sure that's the right word to put it. I'll leave it up to you. This MESSOR ACICULATUS colony has done fantastic. I got a queen and 1 worker. I put them in this ant home. They're very shy, she's very jumpy, and left alone in her own devices inside this unit, which you hardly ever have to interact with. She's laid tons of eggs, and she's got about 10 workers. Now there's not a lot to look at yet because they need to grow way more in number before we have something interesting to see. So we're going to move straight on to the last colony. This is by far one of my favourite colonies. So, this is the CAMPONOTUS NICOBARENSIS colony, and they are just fantastic. There were so many of them recently that there was a little breakout. My cat actually enabled a breakout, and about, I don't know, about 70 of them got around in my house. I've been picking them up, trying to put them back, but we did lose a lot of ants to that. And a lot of ants that I put back seemed to die a few days later, so maybe they were injured in the picking up process. Well, not all of them. But this colony is doing fantastic. Its nest used to be partially filled, now it's solid. The outworld used to be busier, but now it's not so busy, you know, because of my cat Lily. She enabled the escape. Even now, when I was editing this video, a stray CAMPONOTUS NICOBARENSIS just wandered by on an electric cable, and I'm like, you know, you can be sat in a different room on your sofa and you'll feel something like you think a fly's landed on it. Oh no, it's just a NICOBARENSIS, because there's still quite a few escapees walking around, and when I can catch them, I'll put them back. These guys really love apples and their sugar waters, especially honey, stuff like that. I absolutely love this stuff. Putting little bits of apple in and that, I know that's what we all do. But with these guys, they can really get down to it. So what I like to do is I take an apple and I cut the 4 main sides off for myself, and they get literally the entire core, and hundreds of them will get on it and have a feed. And as you can see, there's a nice healthy load on there. Now this is slightly overhydrated due to it got very dry, and I wanted to just give them a bit extra, but I wasn't expecting the sponges to saturate as much as they did. So we're on a little bit of a dry out at the moment, but the ants don't seem to mind. It's more of a visual thing. When something's a bit too wet, the ants don't seem to mind. I know it's not perfect, so we'll get that down to perfect. The humidity is probably too high in the nest, so we're working on that. But until we get some dryness in there, there's no way I'm going to drop the humidity, but it doesn't seem to be harming them whatsoever. Anyway guys, that's been a brief update of my colonies and essentially the setup and what it contains. And like I said, this will be expanding and we'll be doing some other stuff as well. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you next.